Hello everyone. Today we have a powerful story about a woman who discovered something extraordinary when her world fell apart. By the end of this story, we'll learn how emptiness can become the doorway to a life filled with meaning and joy. But that's not all. While we listen to this journey, we will also discover simple practices that can transform our daily experience and help us find richness in the smallest moments. This will show us how to build a foundation of contentment that can weather any storm, so stay with us until the end. Once upon a time, in a bustling city filled with towering buildings and busy streets, there lived a successful businesswoman named Sarah. She was 35 years old and had everything that society told her would make her happy. She lived in a beautiful apartment on the 20th floor with windows overlooking the entire city. Her closet was filled with expensive clothes, her garage had a luxury car, and her bank account was overflowing with money from her high-paying job at a prestigious marketing firm. Every morning, Sarah would wake up in her king-size bed, look around her perfectly decorated bedroom, and feel absolutely nothing. She would go through the motions of her daily routine like a robot. Shower, dress in designer clothes, drink expensive coffee, drive to work, attend meetings, make deals, earn money, come home, order takeout, watch television, and go to sleep. Day after day, week after week, month after month, the cycle repeated itself. Sarah had achieved everything she had worked toward since college. Her parents were proud of her success. Her colleagues respected her achievements. Her friends envied her lifestyle. But deep inside, Sarah felt like she was living in a beautiful prison. Her heart felt hollow, like an empty jar that no amount of money or possessions could fill. She often stood by her apartment window at night, looking down at the city lights and wondered, is this all there is to life? One evening, after a particularly stressful day at work, Sarah decided to take a different route home. Instead of driving her usual path through the main streets, she turned down a quiet neighborhood she had never explored before. The houses were smaller and older than what she was used to seeing. Some had peeling paint and tiny front yards with simple gardens. As she drove slowly through the winding streets, something caught her attention. On the corner of one street, she saw an elderly woman sitting on her front porch steps. She appeared to be in her 70s, with silver hair and weathered hands, holding a cup of tea and watching the sunset with the biggest smile Sarah had seen. The woman's house was tiny and clearly needed repairs. The paint was faded, the fence was crooked, and the garden was nothing more than a few wildflowers growing in old coffee cans. Yet this woman looked more content and peaceful than Sarah had felt in years. Sarah parked her car and found herself walking toward the woman. "Excuse me," Sarah said softly. "I hope you don't mind me asking, but you look so happy sitting here. What's your secret?" The elderly woman looked up with kind eyes that sparkled like stars. Her name was Rose, and she invited Sarah to sit beside her on the steps. "My dear," Rose said with a gentle voice, "I don't have much money. My house is old and small. My husband passed away 5 years ago, and my children live far away. But every evening I sit here and count the gifts that life has given me today." Sarah looked confused. "Gifts?" she asked. "What gifts?" Rose pointed to the sky, where the sun was painting the clouds in shades of orange and pink. "Look at that masterpiece," she said. "No artist could create something so beautiful, and yet we get to see it for free every single day." She then pointed to a small bird that was singing in the tree nearby. "Listen to that music. That little creature is giving us a concert just because it's alive and happy to be here." Rose picked up her cup and took a slow sip of her tea. "This tea cost me less than $1. but it's warm and comforting after a long day. My neighbour Mrs. Johnson brought me fresh tomatoes from her garden this afternoon. A child riding his bicycle waved at me and said hello. The mailman took an extra moment to ask how I was feeling. These might seem like small things to most people, but to me, they are treasures. Sarah sat in silence, trying to understand what Rose was saying. "But don't you want more from life?" Sarah asked. "Don't you wish you had a bigger house, nicer things, more money?" Rose smiled and shook her head slowly. "My dear, I spent many years chasing after more, just like you probably do. I worked long hours, worried about money, compared myself to others, and complained about what I didn't have. I was so busy looking for happiness in the future that I completely missed all the happiness that was right in front of me. One day," Rose continued, "I realized that happiness isn't something we find or achieve. It's something we recognize and appreciate. It was always there, hiding in plain sight. The problem wasn't that my life lacked good things. The problem was that I had trained myself to only notice what was missing or wrong, instead of seeing what was beautiful and right." Sarah felt something stirring inside her chest, like a small light beginning to flicker in a dark room. "How did you change?" she asked. Rose stood up and walked to her small garden, gesturing for Sarah to follow. Among the simple flowers and plants, Rose knelt down and picked up a smooth stone. "I started with this," Rose said, holding up the stone. "Every morning when I wake up, before I do anything else, I think of 3 things I'm grateful for, and I hold this stone in my hands. They can be big things or tiny things. The fact that I slept well, that I have clean water to drink, that my body is healthy enough to walk. Sometimes it's something as simple as the smell of coffee or the feeling of sunlight on my face." Rose placed the stone in Sarah's palm. At first, it felt silly and forced. I had to really search for things to appreciate because I had spent so many years focusing on problems and disappointments. But gradually, something magical happened. The more I looked for reasons to be grateful, the more reasons I found. It was like I had been wearing dark sunglasses my whole life, and suddenly I took them off and saw that the world was full of color. "But what about real problems?" Sarah asked. "What about when bad things happen, when life gets difficult?" Rose nodded thoughtfully. "Of course, life has challenges and sorrows. I'm not suggesting we pretend everything is perfect. When my husband died, I grieved deeply. When I got sick last year, I was scared and in pain. But even during those hard times, I could still find small lights in the darkness. During my husband's final days in the hospital, I was grateful for every moment we had together. I was grateful for the nurses who took such good care of him. I was grateful for friends who brought me food and sat with me. I was grateful that we had 50 beautiful years of marriage to remember. The pain was real, but so was the love and support that surrounded us." Sarah looked down at the stone in her hand and felt tears beginning to form in her eyes. For the first time in years, she wasn't thinking about her next promotion, her investment portfolio, or what she needed to buy to feel better. She was thinking about her mother's laugh, the way her morning coffee smelled, the comfortable bed she slept in every night, and the healthy body that carried her through each day. "I think I've been living like a person dying of thirst while standing next to a well," Sarah whispered. Rose smiled and patted Sarah's shoulder gently. "The well was always there, my dear. You just forgot how to see it." That night, Sarah drove home with Rose's stone in her pocket and a feeling she couldn't quite name growing in her chest. When she walked into her luxurious apartment, instead of feeling the usual emptiness, she found herself noticing things differently. The warm light from her lamps created a cozy atmosphere. Her comfortable couch welcomed her after a long day. The fact that she had a safe place to call home was something millions of people in the world could only dream of. The next morning, Sarah woke up and remembered Rose's words. Before checking her phone or rushing into her usual routine, she sat on the edge of her bed and held the smooth stone. She thought about 3 things she was grateful for. Her first thought was about her health, how her heart was beating steadily and her lungs were breathing without any effort from her. Her second thought was about the hot shower she was about to take, something so simple yet so refreshing. Her third thought was about her job, which she had always seen as stressful, but now she realized it provided her with purpose and the ability to support herself. At work that day, Sarah noticed her colleague Marcus looked tired and stressed. Usually, she would have been too busy to pay attention, but today she stopped by his desk. "You look like you could use a coffee break," she said with a smile. "Want to grab one together?" Marcus looked surprised but grateful. During their conversation, Sarah learned that Marcus had been working extra hours to pay for his daughter's medical treatments. Instead of feeling annoyed about workplace gossip, Sarah felt grateful that she could be there to listen and offer support. When Sarah returned to her desk, she received an email from a client complaining about a delayed project. In the past, this would have ruined her entire day and sent her into a spiral of anxiety and frustration. But today, she took a deep breath and thought differently. She was grateful that she had clients who trusted her company with their business. She was grateful for the challenge that would help her grow professionally. She was grateful for the opportunity to solve problems and make things better. That evening, Sarah decided to visit Rose again. When she arrived at the small house, she found Rose watering her simple garden with an old watering can. "I tried what you taught me," Sarah said excitedly. "I looked for things to be grateful for today, and something incredible happened. My whole day felt different, like I was seeing everything through new eyes." Rose smiled warmly and set down her watering can. "Tell me more about what you discovered," she said. Sarah sat down on the porch steps and pulled out the stone. "I realized that I've been living my life like someone who only notices the cracks in a beautiful painting instead of seeing the masterpiece itself. I was so focused on what was missing or wrong that I completely ignored all the wonderful things that were right in front of me. This morning," Sarah continued, "I was grateful for my morning shower. It sounds so ordinary, but I really thought about it. I have clean hot water flowing into my home at the turn of a handle. I have privacy and safety. I have soft towels and soap that smells nice. Millions of people in the world don't have access to clean water, and here I was taking this daily miracle for granted." Rose nodded approvingly. "You're beginning to see with grateful eyes. What else did you notice?" Sarah's face lit up with excitement. "At lunch, instead of eating quickly while checking emails, I actually tasted my food. I was grateful for the farmer who grew the vegetables, the people who prepared the meal, and the fact that I have enough money to buy nutritious food whenever I'm hungry. I never realized how many people contributed to that simple sandwich. And on my drive home," Sarah continued, "instead of feeling frustrated about traffic, I was grateful for my car that keeps me safe and comfortable. I was grateful for the roads that connect me to places I want to go. I was grateful for the music on the radio that made me smile. Even the traffic gave me extra time to think and reflect instead of rushing through life without paying attention." Rose clapped her hands together softly. "My dear, you're learning one of life's most important secrets. When we appreciate what we have appreciates in value. The same life that felt empty yesterday can feel rich and meaningful today, not because anything external changed, but because our way of seeing changed." Sarah leaned forward eagerly. But Rose, I want to understand more. How do I keep this feeling going? How do I make sure I don't forget and go back to my old way of thinking? Rose stood up and walked to a small table on her porch where she kept a simple notebook and pen. "This is my gratitude journal," Rose said, showing Sarah the worn notebook filled with her handwriting. "Every evening before bed, I write down 5 things that made me grateful during the day. Some days, it's easy because wonderful things happened. Other days, I have to look harder, but I always find 5 things. On difficult days, I might write about having a warm bed to sleep in, or that tomorrow is a new day with new possibilities." Rose opened the journal to a recent page and read aloud. "Today I was grateful for the rain that watered my garden, for the phone call from my granddaughter, for the book I'm reading that makes me laugh, for my neighbor who checked on me when I was feeling unwell, and for the memory of my husband's smile that came to me while I was cooking dinner." She looked up at Sarah. "You see, gratitude isn't just about the big, obvious blessings. It's about training your heart to notice the threads of goodness that are woven throughout every single day." Sarah felt something shifting deep inside her soul. Like a door that had been locked for years was finally opening. "I think I understand now," she said quietly. "I've been waiting for my life to become worth appreciating, instead of appreciating the life I already have. I kept thinking that happiness was a destination I needed to reach, but it's actually a way of traveling." Rose smiled with deep warmth and reached over to squeeze Sarah's hand gently. "Exactly, my dear. You've discovered what took me decades to learn. Happiness isn't waiting for us at the end of some imaginary rainbow. It's sprinkled throughout our ordinary days like seeds in a garden. We just need to water them with our attention and watch them bloom." Sarah spent the next hour listening to Rose share more stories about her journey. Rose told her about the morning she realized that her daily cup of tea wasn't just a beverage, but a ritual of comfort that connected her to her grandmother, who had taught her to make it. She spoke about how she used to complain about doing laundry until she started feeling grateful that she had clothes to wash and a healthy body capable of caring for herself. "The strangest thing happened," Rose continued, "when I started appreciating small moments. Bigger joys began appearing too. My neighbor Mrs. Johnson and I became close friends when I started thanking her for her kindness instead of just taking it for granted. My relationship with my children improved because I focused on their good qualities instead of their mistakes. Even my health got better because I wasn't carrying around so much resentment and disappointment." As the weeks passed, Sarah made visiting Rose a regular part of her routine. Each time she came, she brought her own stories of discovery. She told Rose about the morning she woke up early and watched the sunrise from her apartment window, realizing she had one of the best views in the entire city. She shared how she started really listening to music instead of using it as background noise, and how certain songs could transport her to beautiful memories or fill her with energy and hope. Sarah began transforming her daily habits. Instead of rushing through breakfast while checking her phone, she would sit by her window and eat slowly, savoring each bite while watching people start their day on the streets below. She found herself grateful for the farmers who grew her food, the truck drivers who delivered it to stores, and the store employees who made it available to her. At work, Sarah's colleagues began noticing changes in her behavior. She started complimenting people more often, not with fake pleasantries, but with genuine appreciation for their skills and efforts. She would thank the security guard who unlocked the building each morning, the cleaning staff who kept their workspace comfortable, and the IT support team who solved technical problems. Her co-workers started enjoying her company more, and the atmosphere in her department became noticeably more positive. One particularly challenging day at work, Sarah faced a crisis that would have previously sent her into panic. A major client was threatening to cancel their contract because of a misunderstanding about project deliverables. The old Sarah would have spent the day consumed with anxiety, anger, and self-blame. But this new version of Sarah approached the situation differently. Sarah's story shows us that emptiness isn't the enemy of happiness, it's often the beginning of it. When we stop chasing what we think we need and start appreciating what we already have, our entire world transforms. Like Sarah discovered, gratitude isn't just a feeling, it's a practice that turns ordinary moments into extraordinary gifts. So tonight, before you sleep, find 3 simple things to appreciate. Your life might feel different tomorrow, not because anything changed, but because you learned to see with grateful eyes. Thank you for joining us on this journey, and remember to keep growing and discovering the beauty that surrounds you every day. Thank you for watching. If this story inspired you, please share it with someone who needs to hear this. Consider subscribing and leaving a like on this video for more stories that can transform your perspective on life. I'll see you soon again in the next story. Cheers.